Today, I'd like to talk a little bit about the basics of meditation, the what, the why, and the how. But first, a little preamble. There's going to be a little chaptery things down at the bottom if you want to skip any of this. Why should you listen to me about meditation? I've been at it for 20 years now. I was 18 when I first started meditating in earnest. I was having a bad time in life and tried learning some philosophy and some psychology, and I was finding that I wasn't getting the results I had hoped for from that endeavor, and started casting about for other tools. Came upon a book about Buddhism, thought, well, I'll give this a whack. This could be good, right? And it proved very helpful to me, so I kept at it. And 20 years later, it is a central part of my life and has been for some time. After I finished college, I lived in a Buddhist monastic community for a while, got real into meditation and composting. And ultimately developed some technique that really changed the way that I experience my life for the better. So I'd like to share some of that in the hopes that folks can take a less winding path than I took, because I'll freely confess that my first few years of meditation, I was just sort of putzing around in different directions and not really finding my way into the groove that really gave me the results that I truly desired, which allowed me to live a consistently happy experience. So hopefully you can get there faster. That's the preamble. So we want to talk about the what of meditation. What is meditation? It's not a single thing. It's a collection of practices that afford you the opportunity to understand and shape your experience. So after practicing meditation for some time, you will have a set of tools that you can apply to actively, dynamically shape your experience, which is really important, because if you don't have the tools to shape your experience, then you're at the mercy of whatever life happens to offer you. Stuff happens, an experience of that stuff arises within you, and whatever that experience is, that's your life. With meditation, you have a little bit more flexibility. Why should you meditate? Well, I began to touch on it. You have a fundamental choice, which is that you can accept the experience that arises from you based upon the conditioning of your whole life in response to the events of your life. And you can hope that the universe is very kind to you, and then you will be happy. Or you can take an active role in shaping your experience, and rather than hoping happiness happens to you, you can get out there and make happiness happen for you. And that's a very different position to take. And if you want to do that, you'll probably need some tools. You don't have to meditate to be happy. Let me say that up front. Meditation is optional to a happy life. You can build a happy life experience without meditation. The question that arises for me is, why would you want to? In this situation, meditation is a little bit like the power tools of shaping your experience. So you could build a house with hand tools if you want to. It would just take longer and require more effort and skill than if you use the available power tools. And with meditation, it's very similar. If you take advantage of these incredibly powerful tools that have been developed over thousands of years by human beings grappling with the challenging problem of how to be happy in a universe that doesn't seem very concerned with our happiness or well-being. If you take up these tools, you will get results more readily and with less effort than if you ignore them. So that's the case for why you should meditate. So now that we know what meditation is, it's a set of practices that affords us with cognitive tools, and why we should do it, because it gives us a lot of leverage in reshaping our experience so that we can be happy. How do you actually set about it? What do you need to do? Fundamentally, with meditation, the key activity is simply to open up space in your life, at least at the beginning. So your mind is equipped with this wonderful synthetic faculty. It takes information in from your life experiences and it synthesizes that into the wisdom that you need to live a happy, fulfilled life. Unfortunately, most of us are conditioned to completely ignore that process. And we live these lives of sort of noisy, active cognition that obscures and obfuscates that experience. And for most people, they get the experience of their sort of synthetic wisdom generating faculty very rarely, but it's very profoundly affecting. Wisdom hits different. And so when that is allowed to come through, you have this sudden experience of a lot of information just appearing all at once, fully formed, no sort of discursive process of, oh, I think this, then I think this, then I think this. It's just bing, suddenly everything's different. And your life experience has changed, the way that you look at the world has changed, and in some cases your behavior is tremendously changed. This causes a lot of people to get religion because there isn't a lot of secular discussion of this experience, and so that gets identified with some external spiritual entity because we are so fundamentally alienated from the processes that naturally govern our minds. So we need to make space for that process, and the way that we make space for that process is we simply reduce the amount of stimulus that we're experiencing for a set period of time and allow the natural processes of the mind to unfold and practice paying attention to them. In terms of equipment, fortunately, you don't need a lot. Meditation, very cheap hobby. It's helpful to have something like this. This is my meditation cushion here, my one treasured family heirloom. This is my grandmother's meditation cushion. She gave that to me when I was but a young lad. And if my house ever catches on fire, this is the one thing I'm running out with. But a meditation cushion is a nice piece of equipment simply because it allows you to be comfortable, but in a physical position that's somewhat removed from the way that we sit in our spaces in day-to-day practice. It's nice to have for meditation a set time, a set place, a quiet environment, low cognitive stimuli. So a blank patch of wall in a quiet room that's a reasonable temperature is a great place. If you've got that level of structure set up, what do you actually do? The delightful thing is you don't really have to do all that much. There isn't really an active role to play in the early stages of meditation. It's helpful to have something structurally within your mind to come back to because you're going to get distracted. So I always tell people that the first step in developing a meditation practice is to fail to meditate a lot of times. You set the intention, at this time of day, I'm going to go to this place, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to stare at this little blank patch of wall, and it doesn't happen. And seeing how it doesn't happen is an important part of the process because it's going to reveal to you a lot about the structures in your life that obfuscate your synthetic faculty, that keep you from the wisdom that it's generating for you moment by moment. But when you do get there, you get to the cushion, you've got your blank patch of wall, you're in a quiet place, you should look for something to pay attention to. So you can pay attention to your breathing. Very often people will count their breaths. So you just in 1, in 2, etc. When you get to 10, if you get to 10, start over. It's not a competition. It's not even a goal. It's simply a structure that allows you to notice the deviation from the structure. So when you get to 2 and you notice that you're thinking about something completely unrelated, something interesting happened there. What happened there? Where did that distraction come from? I had the intention to sit here and only count my breaths, and yet something else happened within my mind. So there's something about the dynamics of my mind that perhaps I don't understand, or perhaps I've been taking for granted works in a way that isn't so. Just sort of paying attention to and documenting the actual way that your mind functions is an important foundational skill. You can choose a mantra of some sort, you can chant a phrase or even a single word over and over again, just because when verbiage starts to appear in your mind that isn't that word or phrase, that's a key indication that something interesting is going on that you ought to be paying attention to. You can choose to focus on a particular image. All of these things are options. You don't have to do any of them. Simply being there, sitting on the cushion, is going to do a tremendous amount to open up the space to allow your innate wisdom to flow into that space and then begin to give you the information that you need to move forward. An important thing to keep in mind about meditation is it is a practice. So reading 100 books about meditation is not as good as doing 1 hour of meditation. The practical experience of how that effort to open up space in your life plays out, what arises in your mind, is the foundational learning that you have to do. You don't need to go and read a book or take a bunch of advice. You need to get your butt on a cushion and stare at a wall and see what happens. But we need to be very, very sensitive to the fact that we do have a tremendous amount of conditioning about how the mind works, how thinking works, how different practices can unfold and should unfold. And meditation is no exception. Meditation is a challenging word because it means a lot to a lot of people. And so even if you haven't done meditation before, you'll have preconceptions about how it should go and what you should aspire to. And we need to, as beginners, try to set those aside to the greatest extent possible. One really important aspect of that is to set reasonable and sustainable goals around meditation. So you want meditation to be something that you can do every day for the rest of your life. And that may mean starting with, I would like to get to the meditation cushion at this time and just put my butt on it. And if you can do that for a week, okay, I would like to get to the meditation cushion at this time and sit there for 3 minutes. And if you can do that for a week, okay, maybe next week we'll go for 5 minutes. And if you can do that for a month, then maybe next month we'll go for 10 minutes and build up in a very slow way, because meditation is fundamentally an equilibrium disrupting activity. Your life has a natural pattern. Meditation, by opening up space for wisdom to come in, is going to disrupt that pattern. And any sort of disruption of your present equilibrium requires an expenditure of energy. You have to put energy into moving yourself into a new equilibrium. And if we exert ourselves very strenuously right out the gate, that's going to make it unlikely that it is sustainable. So you might have a good experience meditating for 3 minutes every day and go, I want to do this for an hour every day. This is going to be so much better. And if that happens, then fine. But let's make 5 minutes the goal and have 55 minutes of bonus every day, so that on that day, when you can't do an hour, it's not experienced as a failure, as a loss. Oh my gosh, I'm ashamed, I was doing so good and now I've failed, so let me never do this again. And that is a major problem. There have been periods in my life where, despite the fact that meditation has made my whole happy existence possible, I've still stopped for whatever reason for lengths of time. It happened a couple of times when I was in college, where months at a time I'd go, what? Sort of wake up and go, what? Why haven't I been meditating? What's going on? Get my butt back on the cushion and go, oh, it's a mess in here. Oh, okay. Oh, this is all in shambles. Okay, let's put it back together. And the key to avoiding that is to set sustainable goals and then exceed them and celebrate the bonus time that we spend. A quick note about body positions. So if you search how to meditate, you'll find all sorts of information about sitting a certain way and putting your hands in a certain way and a whole lot of ritual about it. And ritual is not without value. So there is something to sitting in a certain way when you meditate. Not necessarily because that certain way has an intrinsic value, is going to make you wiser or more successful, but the practice of sitting that way while expressing the intention of opening up the space for wisdom in your life will build that association quite strongly, so that down the road, when maybe you're having a rough time and you're like, wow, I could really use some wisdom in my life. You go and sit on the meditation cushion and you adopt the just so pose that you've been practicing for months or years, and suddenly there it is. There's the wisdom that you need because you have this strong association. So it is valuable to have a certain pose or posture that you take up when you are practicing meditation. But the most important thing about that is that it be comfortable for your body, um, and something that you can sustainably do. And you can have an aspirational sequence of meditation postures. So when I first started, I sat in what's called Burmese uh, posture. I have no idea why it's called Burmese posture. I'm pretty sure that all people who meditate in all regions of the world ultimately end up with the same sort of sets of postures, but in the tradition that I was educated in, that was called Burmese. And then I moved into half lotus because Burmese hurt my knees. I know people who've meditated for 30 years and they sit in Burmese posture because that's what's comfortable for their body. Half lotus is more comfortable for my body because my lower back was in shambles at the time and my knees are a wreck. Eventually I moved into full lotus because my experience was that once I had the flexibility to get into that position, it simply was the most comfortable position. Full lotus is honestly the single most comfortable position for my back that I've ever encountered. I can go to sleep in there, although my legs will not be happy because they will eventually go to sleep and then I'll wake up and it'll be a mess. But as far as my trunk is concerned, it's absolutely great. And so now when I sit down in half or full lotus, I just immediately experience a change in my state of mind as there is that deep association with, okay, this is the time that we're paying attention and we're practicing meditation, we're opening the door to wisdom. Here we go. And so that can be really great as just a tool that you can use to deal with exceptionally stressful situations. A way that you can make meditation immediately relevant to your present experience is to have a set body position that you adopt when you go to your place to practice your meditation, because that will build that association. But the important thing here is to just make sure that you don't get hung up on the body position. The body sitting, having your hands in this position or that position isn't going to change the outcome of the synthetic processes that are trying to get the wisdom to you within your mind. So don't get too hung up on that. A lot of people over-ritualize that. The Zen master Benkai had a great analogy for that. Said that people focusing on the particulars of practice was like a samurai taking a ferry across a river and being jostled and losing his sword over the side of the boat, and then desiring to get his sword back, very fastidiously noting the portion along the railing where he was standing when the sword went over the side. It's just not useful information. You need to figure out where you were in the stream. And that's how it is with sort of all of the ritualized components that surround meditation in many traditions. Is they can be useful to you if you practice them, if you understand why they're useful, that it's the repetition and the associations making certain experiences more readily available, not that any particular physical manifestation of practice is going. So that should be enough to get you started with meditation. As you get started, as you build up, as you're being able to spend more time in meditation more frequently, you will begin to discover a whole host of very interesting experiences. My recommendation to you would be don't get too caught up in any of them. Altered states happen. Sometimes hallucinations happen. They are not particularly significant or indicative of anything. The experience of having insights drop in, this sort of very different qualitatively experience of information arising all at once and being very complete and having a very dramatic effect on your mental state and your behavior, that's the significant outcome of meditation. That's ultimately what we're trying to open the door to, and that process will give you more information as you go on about how to seek out particular practices. And at some point, I'll have some follow-up videos on what to look for in that direction.